Well, it looks like the saying that Canadian politics is around 5 years behind American politics is going to hold true once again. As in 2016, we saw the two most unpopular political candidates in Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton square off in a federal election. It looks like Canada's going to see the same thing this year if there is an election called, which likely there will be once the COVID thing sort of clears up, as Justin Trudeau and Erin O'Toole might be the two most unpopular candidates to go into a federal election. Recent data coming out shows that Erin O'Toole has an approval rating around 28 or 29%, which is very, very dangerous. The Spencer Fernando article reported that he has gained no new supporters since taking office, and this is no surprise. Now, Justin Trudeau had a slight bump in approval rating, or a big bump in approval rating, when vaccines first started to come out, and Canada was the third country to put a vaccine in someone's arm. However, the bungling of the vaccine rollout, the inability to actually secure the vaccines, while claiming to have secured the vaccines, and then basically getting Canada on track to not get out of this pandemic for another 25, 30,000 years or so, seems to have him plummeting once again. But the O'Toole number is very fascinating because he's around 28%. Now, political insiders will tell you 25% approval rating is the death number. It is the mass panic number because at 25%, you risk losing official party status, right? Like the Liberals in Ontario under Kathleen Wynne. And we've had this before. I mean, the Liberals before under Ignatieff. So the Conservatives are very, very afraid of what might happen if they continue to plummet in the rankings. And why are these candidates so unpopular deserves some delving into. The Justin Trudeau one is quite self-explanatory to anyone who is not inside the Liberal Party. We have all seen Justin Trudeau's failures. He is an absolute moral failure. He will cry about Islamophobia, even though the stories might be a hoax. Yet when there's a real genocide where there is sterilization and internment in concentration camps of Muslim people in China, he abstains from voting on such. He is also, let's say a hypocrite, always complaining about diversity, yet whenever a woman sort of challenges him, Jody Wilson-Raybould, Selena Chavez, all these people, he boots out. I mean, the recent interview with Selena Chavez basically saying that she was a complete token, and he kind of treated her just like a black person that was there to be black. So we have Justin Trudeau's hypocrisy, moral failings, his massive debt and spending. So a lot of this has made him very unpopular. I mean, the hypocrisy, complaining about racism, being in blackface. We have all of that. I mean, he's gained less popularity, except within media circles who will protect him under any circumstances, even if he plans to blow up the CBC. I think CBC would write an article on, why blowing up the CBC is a revolutionary and intersectional idea. But Erin O'Toole's failings are much more interesting to analyze, and it has been going back to what I've been saying about the Conservative Party for a while now. If you heard someone screaming incoherently about focus groups and polling data during the Andrew Scheer days and raving about Hamish Marshall, that was me. Because the key flaw in the Conservatives are they are taking flawed polling data created by Liberals, using them to determine their policy, and then driving themselves off a cliff doing so. Let me explain. So Erin O'Toole ran as a true blue Conservative, right, in the primaries, right? He lied to everyone saying he was a conservative, although all the evidence pointed that he has a history of being a red Tory. Everyone in his inner staff was hardcore red Tories. He has people associated with the Muslim Brotherhood. He has people advocating for sort of racial quotas and hiring. He has people advocating for the carbon tax in his inner circle. So as red a Tory as there ever has been leading the Conservative Party is Erin O'Toole. The problem is he marketed himself as a blue Tory in the primary. So the people he wanted to get, these sort of centrist GTA liberal lights who might shift over to the Conservative Party and see him more they're not going to go there because you tried to market yourself as this hardcore conservative that was against these people in the primaries. Now you're flipping towards them. Everyone can smell the dishonesty, right? So he's losing enthusiasm within his base because people are saying, I was lied to by Erin O'Toole. And now there's alternatives in parties like Wexit or the Maverick Party or the PPC where people can say, you know what, the Conservative Party is antithetical to conservatism, so I'm going somewhere else. He got rid of Derek Sloan. He demoted Pierre Poilievre. All the popular conservative MPs who stood on conservative values, they are being excommunicated under O'Toole, who ran as I'm against cancel culture, even though I'm canceling Jim Calaharos from the race for criticizing my campaign chair, O'Toole. The real problem, though, is the mentality of the Conservative Party and how they try to gain new followers. It is inherently flawed, and this brings us back to how the Conservatives do research and polling. And this is why the Conservatives keep losing. This is why they don't gain new people, and this is why they lose people. is because they try and follow the data, but the data they follow is severely, severely flawed. If you love the Conservative Party, the one thing you should do is never give money to the Conservative Party. If you give money to the Conservative Party, they will use that money to buy a gun and shoot themselves in the foot. That's what they do. What they do is they do research and polling. The problem is most of the research and polling and strategy institutes they contract are left-leaning in the way they are constructed. That means when they are asking questions, they are inherently flawed. For example, if you see like the CBC political questionnaire in the last federal election, a lot of the questions they constructed were leading. I covered this on my own channel, right? They would ask things like, do you believe Canada should be doing more to protect the environment? Or do you believe Canada should protect the environment or not, right? And this is sort of, and the questions were phrased in a way that if you say, I like the environment, it means I agree with liberal policies. But if I don't like the environment, I'm a conservative. Which isn't true. I mean, I would rant and rave about the fact that, you look at carbon emissions, and if we're going carbon emissions, they went down under Donald Trump's America because of natural gas and all this. So the problem the Conservatives have is they take polling data created by the Liberals, and the questions are phrased, and the way they're answered makes people think that everyone wants to be more liberal. What they do not realize is that if questions are phrased appropriately, that sort of mirror the real conservative values, people actually gravitate towards those policies. A lot of this is in how you phrase these questions or how you phrase policies to people. The problem conservatives have is they take the liberal phrasing of policy, they think, oh, that's what people want, because if you phrase something clever enough, you can manipulate how people will respond to these questions, right? Which is what pollsters do. Then they feed those questions and answers to the Conservative Party and they go, oh, this is what we do. So the Conservatives take these answers and then they go towards the liberal side of the spectrum. The problem here is the precedent you're setting. You're basically giving into the notion that, yes, conservatism is bad and scary and all this, but we're going to be a bit more liberal. If you go with that mentality that conservatism is bad and sort of the liberal ideas are better, well, then people are going to naturally intuit that, okay, if the liberal ideas is better, I'll just go full liberal instead of half liberal. Right? People don't like half measures. Right? So they'll just go fully towards the Liberal Party. This is why they're not winning people further on the left by going further to the left. They're just losing people on the right. The way you gain more followers, the way the Conservative Party actually grows, is if you make the case for conservative principles, if you make the case for conservatism, if you show that, no, look, if you look at, the green energy policies, this is how it's bad for the environment. This is how it's losing everyone money. This is why it's making everything more expensive. Here's what we will do. But instead, Erin O'Toole has done this sort of horrible middle ground thing where he's like, I'm against the carbon tax, but I'm kind of for carbon pricing. Well, that's a carbon tax, right? So he's giving to this raw carbon tax is bad, so that scares the people on the left, but then he has his own carbon tax, which scares people on the right, instead of making the case for, this is not how we make the environment better. We do it by being more efficient. Pollution is inefficiency. Inefficiency is pollution. Reducing inefficiency makes the world a better place. It also brings costs down. It brings pollution down. This is what everyone wants. It's a compromise. Instead, you have Erin O'Toole claiming to be a blue Tory with a heart and mind of a red Tory, driving the Conservative Party off a cliff, and the cliff is 25%. He's currently at 28 or 29%. If he loses 4 more percentage points in his approval rating, there is a very good chance that you could see the Conservative Party collapse forever. What will this look like? Probably looks like the rise of a Wexit Party or a Maverick Party. Maybe the PPC gets more momentum. But the way things are going right now, this is the ultimate in the Canadian race to the bottom. And that's what you should expect in the next federal election is, who do I hate the least? And that's probably how the most people will vote.